What if I told you that Angkor Wat, the proud symbol of the Khmer Empire, might not have been built by the Khmers themselves? How would you react? What if I revealed that this magnificent monument was not merely a temple, but a curse cast down by the gods upon Angkor, bringing about the downfall of a once glorious kingdom? Would you dare to believe it? And what if everything recorded in official history, from textbooks to so-called scholarly truths, was nothing more than a tiny fragment of a vast picture no one has ever dared to complete? Would your faith still remain unshaken? Today, join Logic Relic as we journey into the darkest chapter of the Khmer Empire, uncovering the chilling secret behind the origins of Angkor, from its golden age to a kingdom lost in the jungle, to decode the hidden truth behind one of humanity's greatest wonders. Chapter 1. The Origins of Angkor. The 9th century, Southeast Asia was not a peaceful land, but a place where kingdoms rose and fell like waves crashing against each other on the sea. To the east was Kampa, a proud maritime kingdom, riding wooden ships, trading with China and India, but also a dangerous rival to the Khmer. Further to the southwest was Srivijaya, a mighty maritime empire in Sumatra, controlling the Malacca Strait, the lifeblood of regional trade. To the north, Dai Viet was beginning to form its independent identity from Jiaozhou, while Tang Dynasty China, a giant, cast its cultural and political influence southward. And far to the west was India, the cradle of powerful dynasties that spread religion, art, and philosophy all the way to Indochina. It was India that birthed the currents of Hinduism and Buddhism, two streams that would converge in Angkor to create an immortal marvel. This was the era of Indianization in Southeast Asia, not conquest by sword, but a wave of culture, religion, and art carried by merchants and monks, weaving through rivers and seas. The first temples arose, Sanskrit inscriptions were carved on stone steels, and tales of the Ramayana and Mahabharata echoed in royal courts. From then on, Southeast Asia was never the same. Before Angkor emerged, earlier kingdoms laid the groundwork. Funan, from the 1st to the 6th century, was a thriving trade hub where international ships docked. After Funan came Chenla, or Chenla. The Khmer's transition from a coastal kingdom to a land-based power, relying on agriculture and the Mekong River. It was Chenla that served as the bridge, preparing for the rise of a great empire. An empire that would change the fate of the entire region. An empire called Angkor. And at the crossroads of sea and jungle, between Indian influence and Khmer identity, a king would rise, proclaiming himself Devaraja, the God King, to write the first page of Angkor's legend. In the year 802, in the sacred forest of Mount Kulin, a grand ceremony took place. The king named Jayavarman II stood before his subjects and Brahmin priests, declaring something that would forever change the history of the Khmer people. He was the Devaraja, the God King. Not just a ruler by political power, Jayavarman II asserted himself as the earthly embodiment of divinity, the bridge between the human world and the divine realm. With that proclamation, he officially ended all dependence on foreign powers, particularly the shadow of Java, and laid the foundation for a mighty Khmer Empire. Jayavarman II did not stop at a religious ritual. He chose the land near Tunnel Sap, the heart of Cambodia, as the new center, for it was both fertile and ideal for irrigation and trade. From here, a series of temples and palaces began to rise, modeled after Mount Meru, the cosmic axis in Hindu cosmology. The people believed their capital was not just the king's residence, but a miniature universe where gods descended, granting blessings and protection to the kingdom. It was from Jayavarman II's time that Angkor gradually became the political and religious center of the region. The king created a solid ideological foundation. The supreme power of the monarch was not based solely on military or land control, but was sanctified. This was the seed of a glorious empire, where secular and divine authority were tightly intertwined, propelling Angkor toward becoming one of the most splendid civilizations in human history. After Jayavarman II declared independence and proclaimed himself Devaraja, he set out to build a new capital, a place that was both a political hub and a sacred sanctuary. From the fertile land near Tunnel Sap, the first capital of Angkor took shape, not just as a place to govern the nation, but as a sacred symbol connecting earthly power with cosmic forces. The hallmark of Angkor's architecture from this period was the Temple Mountain model. Each temple was not merely a place of worship, but a miniature representation of Mount Meru, the mythical mountain in Hindu cosmology, home to the gods. The central tower rose high, symbolizing Meru's peak, surrounded by smaller towers and moats, reflecting the concept of a universe with a central mountain for continents and an encircling ocean. Thus, each temple was not just a building, but a sacred cosmos in stone, where gods resided and protected the people. Angkor, from its earliest days, transcended the scope of an ordinary capital. It was where the king ruled, issued laws, organized the military, and governed the land. But it was also a holy site, where the grandest rituals, from royal coronations to offerings to the gods, took place. In the eyes of the Khmer, Angkor was the gateway to the path connecting humans and gods, the earthly and the divine. It was this fusion of politics and religion that formed the soul of Angkor, laying the foundation for an empire that was not only powerful militarily and economically, but also radiant with spiritual authority across Southeast Asia. Chapter 2. The Golden Age, Angkor Wat. In the early 12th century, a remarkable figure ascended the Khmer throne, Suryavarman II, the king who would elevate the Khmer Empire to its zenith. His life was not just the story of a conqueror, but a journey of a man with an immortal ambition. Khmer records tell that Suryavarman II came from a distant branch of the royal family, but through strategic brilliance, he overthrew rivals, navigated power struggles, and ascended the throne in 1130. Once his power was secured, he proved he was no ordinary king. He expanded the empire, quelled rebellions, and made the Khmer Empire one of Southeast Asia's greatest powers. Yet Suryavarman II's ambitions went beyond borders. He did not want his name remembered merely as a warrior king, but as an enduring mark etched into time. In his mind, there needed to be a monument that surpassed all human limits, one that, thousands of years after the empire's fall, would still stand as a testament to Khmer power and divine protection. From this ambition, Angkor Wat was born. It was not just a religious structure, but a political statement, a symbol of eternity. Suryavarman II chose Vishnu, the Hindu god of preservation, as the central deity, breaking from the tradition of worshipping Shiva. He wanted to emphasize that he was the king protected by Vishnu, the rightful ruler of the cosmos. The construction began during the empire's most prosperous era. Tens of thousands of workers, from stone masons and sculptors to farmers and soldiers, were mobilized for the endeavor. Massive sandstone blocks, weighing tons, were quarried from Mount Kulin, over 40 kilometers away. The Khmer dug long canals, using bamboo rafts and hydraulic systems to transport stones across water to Angkor. The sheer volume of stone used for Angkor Wat surpassed even Egypt's Great Pyramid. Day and night, under the supervision of architects and Brahmin priests, the structure rose amidst the jungle. It is said that at dawn, the shadows of the stone towers reflected on the surrounding moat, resembling the universe gazing into a mirror. Through this construction, Angkor Wat became more than a temple. It was a stone cosmos, where heaven and earth harmonized. For the Khmer people, Angkor Wat was a source of boundless pride. It showed that their king was not only mighty in battle, but chosen by the gods, worthy of being tied to eternal stories. For Suryavarman II, each stone laid in the walls, each carving etched into the reliefs, was a step toward his dream of immortality. As Angkor Wat neared completion, Suryavarman II succeeded in sending his greatest message. The Khmer Empire would endure under Vishnu's gaze, and his name would live forever with this great monument. Angkor Wat was not just the largest Hindu temple in the world, but the heart of a civilization, a declaration that some human dreams are grand enough to rival the eternity of the gods. Angkor Wat is not just a colossal temple, but proof that the Khmer in the 12th century reached the pinnacle of construction techniques, sculptural art, and astronomical knowledge. When looking at Angkor Wat, we see not only stone and reliefs, but wisdom, faith, and timeless ingenuity. First, let's talk about construction techniques. Angkor Wat was built with millions of sandstone blocks, each weighing 1 to 2 tons, quarried from Mount Kulin over 40 kilometers away. The Khmer did not use mortar like many other civilizations. Instead, they fitted the stones together with a stone joint technique, grooves and pegs meticulously carved, allowing massive blocks to lock together as if they were cosmic puzzle pieces. Remarkably, these stones have stood firm for nearly a millennium, enduring rain, sun, storms, and the encroaching jungle. To transport this immense quantity of stone, the Khmer dug specialized transport canals, linking the mountains directly to Angkor. Water became the lifeline, with wooden rafts silently carrying stones along rivers to the construction site. This vast network of canals and artificial reservoirs not only served construction but demonstrated the Khmer's extraordinary irrigation planning, the foundation that sustained millions of people. But Angkor Wat is more than material grandeur. Step inside, and you enter a world of stone art. Along walls stretching hundreds of meters, thousands of carvings come to life, as if breathing. These reliefs recount Hindu epics, the Battle of Kurukshetra from the Mahabharata, where heroes fight under divine gaze, tales of the Ramayana with Prince Rama and Sita, and Apsara dancers, gracefully swaying as if music and dance flow through the stone. Each relief is not just art, but a lesson in morality, religion, and a declaration of the Khmer Empire's status. They did not merely imitate India, but Khmerized it, turning it into their own soul. Beyond art, the entire layout of Angkor Wat is a colossal astronomical machine. Unlike most Hindu temples, which face east to greet the rising sun, Angkor Wat faces west. Why? Some theories suggest this aligns with Vishnu, often associated with the West. But modern scientists have proven that, when standing at the temple's main axis during the spring and autumn equinoxes, the sun rises and sets precisely along this line. This means Angkor Wat was built not only for worship but to observe the heavens, tracking the cycles of the sun, moon, and possibly planets. Some researchers have noted that the temple's towers and corridors are arranged according to specific numbers, corresponding to Hindu calendars and astronomical cycles spanning hundreds or thousands of years. To the Khmer, Angkor Wat was perhaps a stone cosmos, where humans could walk through the axis of time and space. Each step along the corridors a journey through cosmic history. All this makes Angkor Wat more than a temple. It is a perfect blend of advanced construction, intricate artistry, and profound astronomical knowledge. Standing before this monument, one cannot help but wonder, was this merely the achievement of an agricultural people or the crystallization of knowledge far beyond their era? Whatever the answer, Angkor Wat stands as proof that the ancient Khmer once touched eternity. If architecture and art made Angkor Wat a marvel, the choice to worship Vishnu was its most distinctive feature, carrying the deepest political significance for Suryavarman II. For generations, Khmer kings revered Shiva, the god of destruction and rebirth, symbolizing absolute power and might. Suryavarman II's shift to Vishnu, the god of preservation, who maintains cosmic order, was a strategic decision, both religious and political. To understand this, we must place ourselves in the 12th century. Under Suryavarman II, the Khmer Empire reached its zenith, but challenges abounded. Kampa remained a dangerous foe to the east, Siam was rising in the west, and internal power struggles never ceased. In this context, the king needed a symbol not only of strength but of protection, longevity, and absolute legitimacy. Vishnu, with his image as the preserver of eternal order, was the perfect choice. The reliefs and statues in Angkor Wat depict Vishnu in various avatars, from the god reclining on the serpent Ananta, emanating creative energy, to Krishna, the heroic savior. For the Khmer people, the message was clear. Suryavarman II was the king chosen by Vishnu to protect and sustain this cosmos. By aligning himself with Vishnu, the king sanctified his throne, making his reign an unchallengeable divine order. In this sense, Angkor Wat was not just a temple but a message of power in stone. It declared to the Khmer people that they lived under Vishnu's protection, under the reign of a divinely chosen king. It was also a message to neighboring kingdoms. The Khmer Empire was not only mighty in arms but divinely sanctioned, an eternal kingdom. With its westward-facing design, tied to Vishnu, Angkor Wat reinforced this message. It is said that when the sun sets behind the stone towers, it is as if Vishnu gazes upon Angkor, safeguarding the empire. Some theories suggest Suryavarman II intended the temple to be his eternal mausoleum, where, after death, he would merge with Vishnu, forever present in this immortal monument. The choice of Vishnu also reflected political acumen. While previous kings aligned with Shiva, a fearsome god of destruction, Suryavarman II chose a protector god. This made him more approachable to his subjects. Not just a sword-wielding ruler, but a guardian maintaining order and prosperity. For the Khmer people, this belief fostered absolute loyalty, as they trusted their dynasty was built not only on human strength, but on divine protection. From this perspective, Angkor Wat was an immortal political statement, a dynasty not only existing in history, but in the sacred order of the cosmos. By tying the temple to Vishnu, Suryavarman II laid the foundation for his name's immortality, affirming that Khmer power was legitimate, divine power. And that is why, to this day, when the sun sets behind Angkor Wat's towers, one feels that not only stone and sand but the immortal spirit of Vishnu and Suryavarman II still shine here. Chapter 3. Angkor Thom and Bayon. In the latter half of the 12th century, the Khmer Empire faced a devastating crisis. Kampa's armies suddenly attacked, ravaging the capital Yesodharapura, burning palaces, and plunging the Khmer court into chaos. In the memory of the Khmer, it was an indelible stain. The mighty capital, once renowned across Southeast Asia, was occupied by an Eastern foe. In this dire moment, a figure emerged, altering the fate of the nation, Jayavarman VII. He was not the direct heir to the throne, coming from a different branch of the royal family. But the tragedy of Kampa's conquest thrust him into leadership. Jayavarman VII rallied soldiers, called on the Khmer people to rise against the invaders. After fierce battles, in 1181, he defeated Kampa and reclaimed the capital. This victory not only restored Khmer honor but paved the way for Jayavarman VII to ascend as emperor. Unlike many predecessors tied to Hinduism, Jayavarman VII chose a different path, Mahayana Buddhism. This was not just a shift in faith, but a profound ideological reform. He saw himself not merely as a powerful king, but as a living bodhisattva, one who sacrifices personal gain to alleviate the suffering of the masses. This belief defined a unique reign in Khmer history. It is said that Jayavarman VII held a deep conviction. A king must embody compassion, placing the people's suffering above personal glory. Yet this compassion did not make him weak. On the contrary, in governance and warfare, he was resolute, even iron-fisted. Records show he mobilized a vast military, launching campaigns to expand Khmer territory into modern-day Laos, Thailand, and parts of Vietnam. Under his rule, the Khmer Empire became one of Asia's most powerful states. However, Jayavarman VII's greatest legacy lies not on the battlefield, but in bringing Mahayana Buddhism to the heart of politics. From the palace to the laws, from sculptures to daily life, everything was infused with compassion and benevolence. Statues of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, appeared everywhere, with serene faces, slight smiles, and half-closed eyes, as if gazing into each person's soul. These were not just images of a bodhisattva, but reflections of Jayavarman VII, the king who saw himself as a protector bodhisattva for all people. His reign, blending compassion with decisiveness, created a dazzling era. He built numerous public works, hospitals, rest houses for travelers, and magnificent temples never seen before. In the eyes of his subjects, Jayavarman VII was not just an emperor, but a savior, a benevolent, yet powerful father. Looking back, we can say Jayavarman VII was a rare phenomenon, a king with the spirit of a warrior and the soul of a bodhisattva. Under his reign, the Khmer Empire reached new heights in culture and ideology. And from here, monumental works like Angkor Thom and Bayon would emerge, forever marking the legacy of the most powerful Buddhist king in Khmer history. After reclaiming the capital from Kampa and ascending the throne, Jayavarman VII embarked on an unprecedented project, building a new capital, a colossal city to showcase his reign's power. That city was named Angkor Thom, meaning Great City. Angkor Thom was encircled by a vast wall, nearly 12 kilometers long and 8 meters high, forming a massive square. Outside the walls was a wide moat, like a miniature ocean, serving both defense and cosmic symbolism. The city was the center of the world, surrounded by an ocean, with Mount Meru at its core. Each side of the city had a grand gate, plus a southern gate leading to the old capital, totaling 5 majestic entrances. On the bridges leading to the gates, dozens of statues of gods and demons clutched a giant Naga serpent, as if churning the sea of milk, a familiar image from Hindu mythology. The entrances alone made anyone passing through feel they were entering another realm, both a human capital and a divine sanctuary. At the heart of Angkor Thom, Jayavarman VII built his most significant monument, the Bayon Temple. Unlike Suryavarman II's Angkor Wat, dedicated to Vishnu, Bayon embodied Mahayana Buddhism. It was a unique temple, unlike any other in Southeast Asia. Bayon is most famous for its hundreds of colossal stone faces. On the towering structures, serene faces with slight smiles and gentle eyes look out in all 4 directions, east, west, south, and north, as if the Bodhisattva's gaze encompasses the universe. Each face stands 4 meters tall. But who are these faces? Many scholars believe they depict Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion. Yet some bold theories suggest they are the face of Jayavarman VII himself, the king who saw himself as a living bodhisattva, immortalized in stone. Perhaps the truth lies in between. Jayavarman VII wanted to merge himself with Avalokiteshvara, making him both king and bodhisattva. Beyond the enigmatic faces, Bayon is renowned for its extensive reliefs along the corridors. Unlike the mythological tales of the Ramayana at Angkor Wat, Bayon depicts everyday Khmer life. Market scenes, fishermen, river battles, and soldiers marching to war. This makes Bayon a vivid tapestry where mythology and daily life intertwine. At Angkor Thom and Bayon, Khmer art reached its zenith, blending Hindu and Buddhist elements. The city's architecture retained Hindu cosmology, Mount Meru, the ocean, Hindu myths, but the central temple exalted Buddhism. In every stone, one senses the fusion. Hinduism provided form, structure, and symbolism. Buddhism infused it with compassion and humanity. With Angkor Thom, Jayavarman VII built not just a capital, but an eternal message. The Khmer Empire under his rule was a microcosm where humans and gods, Hinduism and Buddhism, victory and compassion coexisted in harmony. And Bayon, with its mysterious smiling faces, was the heart of that cosmos, a heart both benevolent and authoritative, human and divine. Stepping into Angkor Thom and Bayon, one sees not only towering stones, but feels a new ideology permeating every corner of the Khmer Empire under Jayavarman VII. This was the fusion of Hinduism and Buddhism, a convergence not only in architecture, but in social life, laws, education, and the people's beliefs. For centuries, Hinduism held near absolute dominance in the Khmer court. Kings aligned themselves with Shiva or Vishnu, using divine authority to bolster their throne. But when Jayavarman VII ascended, he reversed this tradition. He brought Mahayana Buddhism to the heart of politics, casting himself as a bodhisattva and turning the capital into a place where compassion became a governing principle. Yet, he did not entirely abandon Hinduism. On the contrary, Hindu elements persisted in Angkor Thom's layout, mythological reliefs, and religious rituals. This showed a skillful balance. Buddhism brought benevolence, while Hinduism upheld order and cosmology. This fusion created a more open, multi-layered Khmer society. People prayed to Vishnu and Shiva for protection while seeking solace from Avalokiteshvara. In law, Buddhist compassion was woven in, balancing punishment with moral guidance. In education, Buddhist monasteries became centers for training scholars and artisans who studied both scriptures and crafts, contributing to the dynasty. One of the clearest proofs is Jayavarman VII's construction of public works, rest houses for travelers, hospitals for commoners, and roads connecting distant regions. For the first time in Khmer history, public welfare was placed on par with religious temples. Under Jayavarman VII, the Khmer state came close to being a nation centered on its people, not just its king or gods. This ideological fusion made Angkor the cultural and religious hub of Southeast Asia. Monks from Burma, Kampa, and even Sri Lanka came to study and exchange ideas. Merchants and envoys visiting Angkor saw not just a majestic capital, but a vibrant, tolerant, and creative society. The Khmer Empire was revered not only for its military might, but for its spiritual and cultural strength. Yet this fusion had a downside. Blending Hinduism and Buddhism sometimes blurred the lines between divine and royal authority, compassion and decisiveness. Some scholars argue this excessive harmonization weakened centralized power in later generations. Nevertheless, under Jayavarman VII, this blend created a unique identity, leaving a radiant legacy. Looking at Bayon's stone faces, their mysterious smiles are not just Avalokiteshvara's or Jayavarman VII's, but the smile of a civilization that harmonized diverse ideological streams into a cultural ocean. From this convergence, Angkor asserted its place, not just the capital of the Khmer but the soul of medieval Southeast Asia. Chapter 4: Politics and Social Life. To understand why Angkor became one of Southeast Asia's mightiest empires, we must examine how the Khmer organized their governance and society. Angkor was not just grand temples, but a tightly run machine of power, where king, officials, and subjects coexisted in an order both sacred and strict. At the top of the power pyramid was the king, the Devaraja, God King. Unlike ordinary rulers governing through law or military, Khmer emperors were both political leaders and divine incarnations. Their every word and decision was seen as the will of the gods, creating an unchallengeable authority. For the people, obeying the king was obeying the divine, a belief that sustained the Khmer dynasty for centuries. Below the king was a complex, disciplined bureaucracy. High-ranking officials, divided into tiers, managed territories, collected taxes, oversaw religious rituals, or supervised the military. They often came from noble families or those with great contributions to the court. The bureaucracy not only ran the vast empire but bridged the court and the people, collecting taxes, maintaining order, and relaying the king's commands to villages. Parallel to the bureaucracy was the Khmer military, one of medieval Southeast Asia's most formidable forces. Well organized, it included infantry, cavalry, elephant corps, and a navy. War elephants, symbols of might, led battles, crushing enemy ranks. Swift cavalry and disciplined infantry bolstered military prowess. This army enabled Angkor to defeat Kampa multiple times, expand westward, and maintain regional dominance for centuries. But maintaining order in a vast empire required more than military might. The Khmer built a strict legal system, with religion at its core. Many laws were based on Hindu and Buddhist scriptures, balancing authority with morality. Theft and rebellion faced harsh penalties, but teachings of compassion were woven in to guide ethical living. Religious rituals became part of governance. Coronations, offerings, and rain prayers were not just ceremonies, but tools to affirm the monarchy's legitimacy. From this perspective, Angkor was not just a court ruling by sword, but a state run by faith and belief. The king was a divine incarnation, officials his extended arms, the military his punishing blade, and the laws both strict and infused with religion. This blend of politics and spirituality created a resilient empire, making Angkor the power center of Southeast Asia for centuries. If Angkor's stone temples made it immortal in posterity's eyes, water was the force that sustained its prosperity. Behind the grandeur of the towers, Angkor was a colossal irrigation marvel, where humans turned rivers and lakes into arteries feeding millions. Angkor's land lies at Cambodia's heart, near Tunnel Sap, Southeast Asia's largest freshwater lake. This lake has a unique phenomenon. During the rainy season, the Tunnel Sap River reverses, with Mekong waters flooding the lake, expanding its area 4 or 5 times compared to the dry season. The Khmer harnessed this natural wonder to build a sustainable agricultural system. But relying on Tunnel Sap alone was not enough to sustain a capital spanning hundreds of square kilometers. The Khmer went further. They built massive irrigation works, most notably the Baray Lakes. These artificial reservoirs covered tens of square kilometers, dug and built by human hands. The largest, West Baray, stretched 8 kilometers long and nearly 2 wide, holding vast water volumes to irrigate thousands of hectares of rice. The Barays were not just water sources, but cosmic symbols, oceans encircling Mount Meru in Khmer religious cosmology. Thus, an irrigation work served both practical and sacred purposes. From the berets and natural rivers, the Khmer dug a vast network of canals, channeling water to distant fields. Water was distributed strategically by season, enabling rice cultivation 2 or even 3 times a year, rare for medieval agriculture. This made Angkor a rice granary, feeding not only the capital's residents but the military, officials, and artisans building temples. This robust agricultural economy turned the Khmer into a powerhouse not only in culture but in food production. The power of rice cannot be underestimated. With abundant food, the Khmer army could wage long campaigns without shortages. Surplus rice enabled trade with neighbors. A well-fed, stable populace strengthened loyalty to the court and king. Today, archaeologists using LiDAR laser scanning have revealed that the area around Angkor was a super-hydraulic city, with hundreds of kilometers of canals, reservoirs, and dams. This proves Angkor was not just a religious center, but one of the most sophisticatedly planned cities of the medieval world. Looking at this grandeur, we understand. If temples were Angkor's spiritual symbol, water, nourishing the fields, was its material soul, the lifeblood of the empire. Without berets, canals, and rice, there would be no mighty Angkor. This is why the Khmer irrigation system is called the water marvel, a wonder no less grand than any stone structure they built. If irrigation and rice were Angkor's economic foundation, regional trade was the gateway to its prosperity and radiance. Its strategic location, between the Mekong River and Tunnel Sap, made Angkor a hub connecting land and sea, where Southeast Asia's greatest trade routes converged. Waterways from Angkor led to the South China Sea via Kampa, connecting to Chinese and Vietnamese ports like Nhat Nam and Guangzhou. Southwestward, Khmer trade routes reached the Gulf of Thailand, linking with Srivijaya, the maritime empire controlling the Malacca Strait. Further still, Khmer merchants accessed Indian markets, where goods, culture, and religion intermingled. This trade network transformed Angkor from an agricultural empire into a true international commercial hub. In Angkor's markets, one could find rare goods, silk from China, spices from India, pearls from Campa's seas, precious woods and ivory from Indochina's forests. In return, the Khmer exported rice, dried fish, palm sugar, and exquisite crafts like stone statues, pottery, and textiles. These exchanges brought not only material wealth, but allowed Angkor to absorb cultural riches from afar. Trade also meant cultural exchange. Sanskrit and Pali scripts from India deeply influenced Khmer writing. Confucian and administrative elements from China reached the court via envoys. Campa's legends and rituals blended with Khmer culture, creating a vibrant tapestry. Some scholars suggest this openness enriched Khmer art. Apsara dancers bore the grace of Indian tradition, but their costumes and movements were distinctly Southeast Asian. Religion, too, spread through trade routes. Hinduism and Buddhism from India took root in Angkor via merchant ships and missionary monks. In turn, Angkor became a Buddhist hub, attracting monks from Burma, Thailand, and Sri Lanka. Khmer Buddhism then spread to neighboring kingdoms, becoming a key part of Southeast Asia's religious map. Through trade and cultural exchange, Angkor became medieval Southeast Asia's crossroads, where goods, ideas, and beliefs converged and radiated outward. It was not just a military and agricultural empire, but an open civilization, embracing and transforming external influences into its unique identity. This openness allowed Angkor to retain its Khmer soul while exerting influence across the region. Standing among Angkor's ruins today, it's hard to imagine this was once a bustling trade hub where thousands of merchants, envoys, and scholars gathered. But the ancient canals, roads, and reliefs depicting trade scenes prove it. Angkor was not just the Khmer capital, but once the heart of Southeast Asia for centuries. Chapter 5. Decline and Disappearance. Every civilization reaches a peak of glory, but none escapes the cycle of decline. For Angkor, centuries of brilliance ended in fierce political and military turmoil. The strengths that once expanded its borders became burdens, dragging the Khmer Empire down a path of decay. From the late 13th century, Angkor faced relentless wars. To the east, Kampa, a long-standing rival, clashed with the Khmer on land and sea, draining manpower and resources. To the west, a new power emerged, Siam, the precursor to Ayutthaya. Initially small states under Khmer influence, they grew stronger, directly challenging Angkor's dominance. Battles with Siam grew fiercer, destabilizing the western borders and exhausting the empire. Internally, the once tight bureaucracy weakened. The disciplined official system of earlier reigns succumbed to division and corruption. Distant regions grew less controlled by the royal court. Power fragmented among local nobles, eroding the centralized authority that was Angkor's greatest strength. Kings were no longer omnipotent Devarajas like Suryavarman II or Jayavarman VII, often heading a divided court. This division weakened the Khmer military, once a source of pride. No longer launching grand conquests, it fought desperate defensive battles. The mighty elephant corps dwindled, and long campaigns became unsustainable. Though irrigation and agriculture persisted, political instability hindered resource mobilization for war and construction. The endless conflicts with Kampa and Siam created a deadly cycle. The people were exhausted by constant conscription, fields were abandoned, food supplies dwindled, yet the court relied on wars to maintain authority. The more they fought, the weaker Angkor became. The weaker it became, the more it was drawn into conflict. Finally, in the mid-15th century, Ayutthaya dealt a fatal blow. In 1431, Siamese forces invaded Angkor, sacking the capital and forcing the Khmer royalty to retreat south to modern-day Phnom Penh. This was not just a military defeat, but the final strike against Khmer power's symbol. From then, Angkor, once a glorious capital, fell into darkness. Political and military causes were the first blade to wound Angkor. Endless wars, a weakened bureaucracy, and fragmented power bled the empire dry. As conflict eroded it, other factors, natural disasters, climate, and society, deepened the wounds, pushing Angkor toward complete collapse. War and politics were only half the story. The deeper cause of Angkor's decline came from an invisible enemy no army could defeat: nature. The water that once nourished the Khmer Empire became a double-edged sword, contributing to the fall of a civilization. For centuries, Angkor's vast irrigation system operated like a perfect machine. The Baray lakes, canals, and artificial channels from tunnel sap turned arid land into fertile rice fields. This sustained millions and a mighty army. But a civilization so dependent on water was vulnerable to climate shifts. And that was the tragedy that struck. Modern scientific studies, analyzing soil cores, tree rings, and satellite imagery, show that from the late 13th to 15th centuries, Southeast Asia faced unprecedented prolonged droughts. For years, rainfall plummeted, rivers and lakes dried up, and crops failed. For an empire reliant on rice, declining agricultural output shook its economic foundation. Drought was not the only blow. Nature struck again with erratic monsoons. When heavy rains followed dry years, the intricate but rigid irrigation system couldn't adapt. Canals burst, sediment clogged channels, and floods damaged crops. Many barays were abandoned, unmaintained. The once water marvel became a colossal burden. The inevitable result was famine and disease. Without enough rice, the capital's dense population fell into hardship. Famine reduced the population, weakening the labor force for production and defense. Stagnant water and broken canals bred disease, spreading illness. An empire favored by nature now knelt before its harshness. Scientists today believe the combination of prolonged droughts and erratic monsoons was a key environmental cause of Angkor's fall. Without food to sustain the army or a stable irrigation system for the economy, Angkor lost its foundational strength. Looking back, Angkor is a stark example of humanity's dependence on the environment. The Khmer created one of history's greatest irrigation systems, but their absolute reliance on it left them defenseless when the climate changed. In that harsh cycle, the Khmer Empire's brilliance began to fade. What stuns researchers and posterity is not just Angkor's weakening, but how a mighty empire vanished almost abruptly. No single battle marked its total collapse, nor did one disaster bury it. Instead, the city was gradually abandoned, swallowed by the jungle. The question echoes through centuries. Why did the Khmer abandon Angkor? Historical records note that in 1431, Ayutthaya's Siamese forces attacked and captured Angkor. This event is often seen as the end of the Angkor era. But strangely, after the defeat, the Khmer did not rebuild or resist to reclaim their capital. They chose to leave, relocating to Phnom Penh, closer to the Mekong River and better for maritime trade. Why would a capital built over centuries, with the world's grandest monuments, be abandoned so easily? One theory suggests that after wars, disasters, and famine, Angkor's population dwindled, unable to sustain a vast capital with a complex irrigation system. People migrated south, where water was abundant and trade easier. Another theory emphasizes political decline. With a fractured court and local lords acting independently, the people lost faith in the Devaraja's protection, making abandonment inevitable. Yet the truth remains elusive. Why would a place that fed millions become a ruin almost overnight in historical terms? Was it just war and climate, or something deeper? Khmer legends tell of gods turning away from Angkor. When kings and officials lost their purity, the gods departed, taking the city's soul. Without divine presence, the capital was just lifeless stone walls. What is certain is that after abandonment, the jungle reclaimed Angkor. Mighty temples were gripped by giant tree roots. Stones crumbled under nature's weight. Birds and beasts replaced humans, and the wind replaced festival drums. Angkor, once an empire's center, became a silent ruin in the green forest. For centuries, the Khmer people knew of these temples, but Angkor was no longer a capital or power center. It faded into vague memory, part of folklore. Not until the 19th century, when French explorer Henri Mouhot arrived, did Angkor reappear to the world, astonishing humanity with a colossal stone city once forgotten. To this day, the mystery of why Angkor was abandoned remains unanswered. Perhaps it was a convergence of factors: war, climate, famine, disease, political decay. Or, as some mystical theories suggest, Angkor never truly fell. It merely fell asleep, awaiting humanity's awakening. Whatever the reason, the image of Angkor swallowed by the jungle remains one of history's most poignant symbols. It reminds us that even the greatest civilizations can vanish, leaving behind only stone, trees, and questions without complete answers. Chapter 6: Science, Exploration, and Myth. For centuries after its abandonment, Angkor nearly vanished from the world's memory. Its grand temples were swallowed by the jungle, surviving only in the hazy memories of local Khmer as ancient tales of a sacred city belonging to the gods. It was not until the 19th century, when Western explorers ventured into Asia, that Angkor reemerged, shocking the world as if a lost civilization had been found. In 1860, a French explorer named Henri Mouhot ventured into Cambodia's jungles. On his journey through Indochina, he heard tales of colossal stone temples forgotten in the forest. When Mouhot first saw Angkor Wat, he was so stunned he couldn't believe his eyes. In his journal, he wrote that the monument was grander than anything left by Greece or Rome. His account, published in Europe, ignited global imagination. For 19th-century European scholars, familiar with Egypt's pyramids and Rome's Colosseum, discovering a vast temple complex in Southeast Asia was a shock. How could a civilization they barely knew create such a marvel? Angkor sparked debates. Who built it? Were the Khmer truly capable, or was this the legacy of another lost civilization? In the context of France's expanding influence in Indochina, Angkor became a colonial symbol. The French saw their rediscovery as proof of their civilizing mission, beginning excavations and restoration. French scholars, architects, and archaeologists flocked to Angkor, mapping, photographing, and documenting every detail. Temples were cleared of vines and roots, and fallen stones reassembled. Angkor, from a sleeping ruin, became a living museum of the Khmer's glorious past. Yet this rediscovery carried a paradox. For the Khmer, Angkor was never truly lost. They still considered it sacred, holding festivals and monks residing in the temples. But in Western eyes, they were portrayed as strangers to their ancestors' marvels, as if they didn't understand their own heritage. This reflected colonial attitudes. Europeans saw themselves as excavators of history for other peoples. Still, it's undeniable that Muhat and French scholars brought Angkor out of myth into global awareness. Their photographs, drawings, and studies from the late 19th century introduced Angkor to Europe, then the world. From then on, Angkor Wat became a symbol, not just of the Khmer, but of all Southeast Asia. Today, reading Muhat's journal, we still feel his awe and wonder at first seeing Angkor, a colossal stone city hidden in the jungle, beyond all imagination. That moment marked Angkor's return from darkness to light, a moment that began a new journey, from forgotten ruin to UNESCO World Heritage Site and an enduring pride of the Khmer people. After being awakened in the 19th century, Angkor embarked on a new journey, one of science. While early French scholars relied on pen, paper, and cameras to document the temples, modern researchers wield tools beyond their predecessors' imagination. Through science, Angkor's thousand-year secrets began to unravel. For decades, archaeologists excavated and restored walls and reliefs. They uncovered traces of lost structures, discovered hidden foundations, and confirmed Angkor was not just scattered temples, but a vast complex. But it was the advent of LiDAR, a laser scanning system from the air, that revealed Angkor's true scale. In the early 21st century, scientists mounted LiDAR on helicopters, flying over Cambodia's jungles. Laser beams pierced dense tree cover, reflecting off the ground to create detailed 3D maps. The results stunned the world. Beneath the forest surrounding Angkor Wat and Angkor Thom were traces of a colossal city. They found straight roads stretching tens of kilometers, linking temples and settlements. Canals and reservoirs, once thought isolated, were part of a vast irrigation network. Researchers even discovered sprawling residential areas, secondary walls, and auxiliary structures previously unknown. Angkor was not just a capital, but an ancient supercity where hundreds of thousands lived in a sophisticatedly planned system. These findings transformed how we view Angkor. Once seen as a religious center with a few famous temples, it emerged as a complex urban hub with roads, canals, and neighborhoods, rivaling the world's great medieval cities. This proved the Khmer were not just temple builders, but masters of urban planning and resource management. Alongside LiDAR, modern excavations revealed surprises. Archaeologists found tools, pottery, weapons, and jewelry, showing the rich daily life of Angkor's residents. They uncovered evidence of repairs, expansions, and abandoned projects, signs of the capital's constant evolution. Each layer of soil and stone was a page of history, recounting the rise and fall of the Khmer Empire. The marvel is that science lets us see through the jungle to a lost city. But more wondrously, what emerged was not just ruins but a complex urban ecosystem, far grander than previously estimated. Angkor, through LiDAR, is no longer a hidden mystery but a vivid testament to human ingenuity nearly a millennium ago. Today, standing atop Angkor Wat, gazing at the endless green forest, it's hard to imagine that beneath the trees were once straight roads, bustling homes, and vanished structures. But science has proven Angkor was an ancient supercity, matching or surpassing many contemporary global cities. This discovery only deepens the mystery of its decline. As science unveils Angkor's secrets, some questions remain unanswered. These gaps fuel countless myths and conspiracy theories about Angkor Wat, intriguing, mystical ideas that captivate human imagination. One of the biggest questions: who truly built Angkor Wat? With its colossal scale and precision stonework, some believe medieval technology couldn't achieve it. Conspiracy theories claim Angkor Wat wasn't built by the Khmer, but is a remnant of a lost civilization, even an extraterrestrial creation. Bayon's enigmatic faces and precisely fitted corridors, as if cut by modern machines, feed these bold ideas. Scholars dismiss this, but for many, the notion of Angkor as an alien legacy holds irresistible allure. Another theory focuses on astronomy. As seen, Angkor Wat's layout aligns with solar and astronomical cycles. Some scholars find similarities between the tower arrangements and constellations like Draco. Some propose Angkor is not just a temple, but a vast cosmic map on Earth, mirroring the heavens. If true, Angkor Wat is not merely architecture, but a time machine, recording the universe's movements in stone. Khmer folklore tells of Angkor being built in a single night by gods and celestial armies. Legends say Naga serpents lifted stones, linking the divine and human worlds. For the people, these tales aren't about proving science, but preserving the belief that Angkor is sacred, a gift from the gods. Today, amidst Cambodia's jungle, Angkor Wat stands majestic and mysterious. Science can measure every stone, decode every inscription, but its enigma remains untouchable. Each sunrise over Angkor Wat, as light emerges behind the towers, prompts the question, have we truly understood this monument, or only touched the surface of a deeper mystery? Angkor today is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the eternal pride of the Khmer, a pilgrimage and tourist destination for millions. But beyond that, it's a symbol of the intersection of science and myth, history and imagination. Angkor is both reality, a stone structure built by humans, and a living legend, urging us to question, doubt, and yearn to explore. Perhaps this is Angkor's true power, not just in its stone, reliefs, or towers, but in its ability to make humans, across millennia, look up, marvel, and wonder, what else is Angkor hiding? We've just journeyed through over a millennium, from Jayavarman II's proclamation on Mount Kulin in 802, to the immortal Angkor Wat under Suryavarman II, to the radiant Buddhist era of Jayavarman VII, and finally to the poignant decline as Angkor was swallowed by the jungle. Angkor was once the political, religious, economic, and cultural heart of medieval Southeast Asia. It stands as proof of human ingenuity and a reminder that no civilization escapes the cycle of rise and fall. Yet Angkor leaves us not only stones and temples, but questions that remain unanswered. Who were the true architectural masterminds behind Angkor Wat? Why was an entire city abandoned? Could Angkor be a stone cosmos, or even the legacy of a lost civilization? These are mysteries we've only touched upon today. In the next video, Logic Relic will dive deeper with you into the realm of hypotheses and myths, where Angkor still whispers tales no one has fully unraveled.